Hi everyone, and welcome to the Sustainable Services event taking place today as part of the London College of Communication Postgraduate Showcase. We are 8 or 9 of the 40 service designers of the apocalypse. And today we're going to be discussing major projects from all of the panelists MA Service Design. I'm especially excited to hear from this group because all of these projects come from such a passionate place and are concentrating on putting the planet and people first. These students over the last 6 months have developed solutions from making food delivery more sustainable to helping entrepreneurs develop a circular mindset. First, I'll introduce myself and also feel free to use the chat to introduce yourselves too. My name is Laura and I'm one of the MA Service Design graduating students, but I'll be talking in a different group in the social innovation group on Tuesday. Today I'll be leading the discussion and fielding questions from you guys, the audience. Just to tell you a little bit about how this session is hopefully going to work, I'm going to ask all the students a few questions about their projects and then opening up to all you to ask questions at the end. So feel free to, when you have a question pop in your head, just stick it in the Q&A chat. And if you can try and include the name of the person your question is aimed at, then that will help us kind of get through more at the end. Also feel free to ask any more general questions and then I'll open that up to the panelists. Sarah has been and will be sharing links in the chat to each individual student's work as they're speaking. So yeah, use those links if you want to kind of explore more, or feel free to go back and have a look after the session. So before we start, I just have a few house rules that I need to go through. Firstly, the event is being recorded and afterwards will be made public on the LCC YouTube channel. So by attending this event, you're agreeing to your contributions being captured and used for this purpose. Please, as I said before, use the Q&A to type in any questions and we'll get to them during the designated Q&A part towards the end of the session. Also, Sarah has posted in the chat our community guidelines, which we expect all participants in these virtual events to abide by. And finally, Sarah's also posted, you might have to do some scrolling to the top, some hashtags to be used so that you can share this event across social media. So without further ado, I'll invite Dawny first to answer a few questions about her project Plante. Dawny, so your service helps 6 to 9-year-olds understand the food production process through nature exploration, games and science workshops. What's the biggest difference between this and other natural education services?
Yeah, well, in global side, we can find that there are so many natural education institutions, while most campus get fields within. Therefore, students can plow the land, sow the seeds, and grow food outdoor at school. The food from nature bound is processed, cooked, and enjoyed with appreciation in their meals. In some more developed cities, they have dining hall in the center, which allows them to make meals together in an accordingly secure environment. While in local area, it is apparent that students can have more chances to get touch with the nature. There are several reasons. First, the farm is quite far away from the school among the center of the city. Second, we don't have enough places for the garden within fields affected by higher population of each grade in China. Thus, in my service, we provide them with an indoor experience of the nature exploration. They observe plants and learn composting groups. By this way, they could bring what they learn at school to the family and community. It becomes their motivation when they find it's really easy to do at home. What's more, it's complete experience of the cycle. They start from exploring and ending making their own meals from what they planned before. We also offer online platform for kids, parents, and school staffs, those stakeholders together to share their findings and thoughts. That like posting recipe books, they could learn and communicate with each other through the online service. Yeah, that's all.
Well, that sounds amazing. How did you cooperate with primary schools and other institutes?
Yeah, after contacting with Beijing Forestry Society and other communities, I successfully get touch with one nature education institute who is willing to cooperate with me. They could provide tools and space. It's called Bob Yongxu Nature Campus. Also, just cooperating with Charity Foundation. And in order to promote and advertise the workshop of my service, we could write WeChat push on the public platform of the community so that more residents could take part in. Also, when cooperate with those primary schools, we could use our online platform to gather nature and science articles and curriculums for those schools to refer. They could find parents and students' reflection on it. So that's how they benefit from our service. Those private primary school managers could also contact with us if they are interested in some of our workshops. Yeah, thank you.
That's really cool. I like the idea of kind of piggybacking on existing platforms to kind of get that communication done. It's really, really interesting. Prang, your service, Grab Green, also concentrates on education, but takes quite a different approach. Could you tell us a bit more about your service and your target user?
Yes, of course. Thanks for the questions. Grab Green is a sustainable food delivery service that encourages and supports customers to use eco-friendly packaging by educating different types of plastics and the benefit of using the bioplastic as well, which the application is much more than the typical food delivery service because apart from giving food delivering, this app also conscious about the environmental effect. And also the ordering food, it will be a new way to make people have like more conscious about and also to get educated at the same time of making an order process on the application. That's why we need Grab Green.
Cool. I really like the idea of using food service as a touch point for raising awareness of sustainability. What motivated you to do work on this project?
Yep. As we all know, the COVID-19 pandemic has affected our ways of living in cleanliness, safeness, and the traveling difficulty to the restaurant. Hence, the food delivery service is the main factor that people choose in this current situation. Still, the effect of this service also produces a huge amount of waste to society. Actually, it does not only happen in Thailand, but also impact on a global scale. Therefore, I would like to use the food delivery with its pain point to develop and have a positive improvement to our service providers, which are customers and environment. Grab Green Food Delivery Service application is the app that will enhance the experience of using the service by changing their experience through the sustainability component to develop a long-lasting service.
That's amazing. Thank you, Prang. Chuan, you noticed in your project that a lot of people's awareness is actually quite high already, but there's this thing called the value action gap. Could you explain what value action gap means and why you chose to work on this topic?
Thanks, Laura. And the value action gap actually is a psychological phenomenon where people act in a manner that is inconsistent with their personal values. And this occurs in sustainable development when people say they care about environmental issues, but many actually fail to take any action. And doing my research, I noticed that the awareness of sustainability is quite well established in our society, especially in the UK, but the actions part has been lagging, especially if eco-friendly action is at a cost of a higher price or less convenience. Despite there are tons of reports about pollution methods teaching people how to be sustainable, such as the famous 5 R's, the rate of transferring from intention to action is still very low. Therefore, I think changing people's behavior and encourage more action is a valuable topic to explore.
Wow, I've actually never heard of value action gap before and feel like I'm probably guilty of it sometimes. What did you find out during your project and how did you come up with your solution?
Yes, there are lots of insights in my report, but just for the purpose of summarizing, the most difficult part in your journey of transferring from awareness to action is when you decided to make the first step. Well, the most important motivation and the needs based on my research are, the first one is starting from easy and small actions. The second one is you need support from friends. And the last one specifically for the sustainability is you need visualizing the environmental impact of an action. So my solution is try to build a connection between those motivations. In the end, I decide to use a concept of a challenge to connect those motivations and use it as a provocation to stimulate people's competitive desire to participate. In the service, you can create a group and invite friends to join. Then you initiate many challenges. It could be as easy as turn down your washing machine's temperature setting, or as hard as to build a composting bins in your garden. In the group, you compete for higher scores. Once you reach 100 points, the system will plant a tree for you in somewhere in the world. And in addition, the system will calculate how much water, CO2 emissions, and waste have been saved because of your group's effort. Yeah, that's kind of brief on my report, on my projects.
That's so cool. I can't wait to read your report about it and hear more about the service. Lee, your project also had a focus on kind of using information to motivate the user. Could you give us a brief introduction to your project?
Yeah, thank you, Laura. The UA Accelerate is a service to demonstrate the benefits of electric vehicles as a more sustainable means of transport to university students in China to increase drive their adoption in the next generation. The project began by exploring the reasons for people's reluctance to use electric vehicles, and found it was due to the misconceptions about electric vehicles, new technology. The main reasons for the misunderstanding was that the EV knowledge was difficult to understand, and there were few sources of access to EV information, and there was a lot of false information in the media. After identifying the problem by combining interviews and insights from various sources, university students who have a high probability of buying a car in the next 5 years and powerful environmental awareness were choose as their target user. And the design pro samples were based on a clear problem and target group, interesting, understandable, promotional, and reliable. Based on the design pro samples, several rounds of prototyping and iterations were carried out, resulting in a design outcome that was positively received by the target audience. And the final output of the project were a board game, an online app, and a company with electric vehicle companies. They work together to better serve their target users.
That sounds really fun. I'd love to try out the board game. Do you know what was the impact of the project?
Yeah, okay. UA Accelerator provides Chinese university students with the opportunity to understand electric vehicles and develop an environmentally friendly mobility concept, and hoping the service can contribute to the society's sustainable development. Many users who have been involved in my project come to share their feelings with me, and they feel that being involved in my project for a long time did change their perceptions of electric vehicles, but it's a process and didn't happen immediately. But for me, it's touching, and one of the reasons why I love service design. Yeah,
that's really nice. Thanks, Lee. I hope everyone's got a coffee in their hand, because otherwise Daria's project is going to make you really want one. Daria, what is your project about? Coffee. And what type of approach did you take to your research, and why?
Yeah, hi everyone, and thank you very much, Laura, for the question. And I hope you got your coffee in your hands, because my project, in my project, I was working on a service which is called Coffee Aging Learning Community, and it is aimed to rebalance the coffee value chain through farmers' education. I used the ecosystem approach in there, and it allowed me not just look at each element, you know, as a separate thing, but I zoomed out and started looking at the system as a whole. And in my project, it was the coffee industry system. And within the coffee industry, it is really essential to do so, apparently. Each actor and each process is interlinked. If the farmer did a lousy job and produced low quality bean in the beginning, and the roaster who follows him up in the coffee value chain would not revitalize it and make it high grade again, unfortunately. So the farmer is really responsible for the quality of their product. My target user, well, obviously is coffee producer. And as they are the gatekeepers and stand at the beginning of the coffee value system, which consists of many, many actors. However, because I mapped out the system, the coffee industry system, I looked at different relations and connections within it. And I know that the service will impact positively on the whole coffee value chain. And when farmers, the gatekeepers, know how to produce high quality beans, they automatically enter a chain of responsible actors who appreciate their product quality and value. So the same level of quality is brought to each stage of the coffee chain. By making a quality product in the beginning, we bring the same level to every step further. And I guess one of the main realizations I got, and I can put it in a metaphor, that any issue or any problem should be seen as a needle that goes through all the way through the complex systems, and any complex system, it doesn't matter which one. But in my case, again, it was coffee industry.
That's really cool. I love the metaphor.
Yeah, thanks.
I understand that that designing sustainably was really important to you. Could you tell me more about that aspect of your project?
Yeah, sure. No worries. I really loved working on my project, and I can talk about it hours and hours. And I do love coffee. It is my passion. But returning to your question, designing sustainably in the coffee industry means covering three main pillars, which is environmental, economic, and social, as all three are very interrelated and equally important. The Coffee Agent Learn community, the service I've created, covers all three pillars. If taking the environmental aspect, the first pillar, the service offers farmers a range of information, including sustainably coffee farming. So that means really thinking about how to grow coffee in a more sustainable way. And the farmer could potentially get assessed by the committee, which assesses farmers on sustainability, and get a certificate saying that the farm is growing beans in the best way possible to save the land and environment. So if looking from the second pillar, from the angle of the second pillar, which is economic part, the learning program passes on knowledge, allowing farmers to differentiate their product and sell both commercial, less quality product, well, not that high quality product, and a high quality product, which is called specialty coffee in the coffee industry. You can find a tiny bit more about it in my report, which will be in the link in the chat. And through the project, I found out that producing both cheaper and more expensive coffee types benefits farmers financially. Coffee Agent emphasizes social sustainability, so our third pillar, which I was talking about, through seminars which discuss each actor's importance in the coffee value chain. And it is really vital for each actor to understand its value and what they bring into coffee value chain and into coffee industry. And moreover, the service is designed to upgrade farmers' skills, and not only as a producer, but also as a teaching assistant or facilitator, and eventually minor the participations of one of the main actors, which is currently a green coffee trader, whose role currently is to pass on the knowledge and facilitate. I hope I answered your question, Laura.
You definitely
Thanks
did.
for that.
Thank you. There seems to be this interesting theme of kind of like agency and information coming out through these projects that you've all presented so far. I think it's yeah, really interesting. Ting, your project also focused on a kind of ecosystem approach to help family-based wool factories to survive the off-season where there's a large waste of machinery usage and human resources. Could you tell us more about how this ecosystem works and how it benefits different roles at the same time?
Yes, thank you, Laura, for asking the question. My service involved different stakeholders, including the brands, the factories, customers, and the universities. So firstly, the brands, they ask the service provider by providing a better after-sales service with old clothing renovation to the customers to meet their needs. So as the brands, they can improve their market competitiveness and achieve the brand exposure, attract more new customers, and to maintain a good relationship with their old customers. And for the factories, they undertake the transformed work, so which breaks down the woolen sweater limitation, which means they still have some things to do in the off season, even without any sweater orders. So they can become more resilient to avoid the large waste of the factory resources.
That's
Yeah,
amazing.
and for the universities, I also involved fashion students in this ecosystem. So the students provide transformed products, and it provides a new opportunity for the cooperation between the universities and the entrepreneurs. And what's more, it also prolongs a life cycle of a woolen sweater. So it's environmentally friendly and in line with the green economy. Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing. You make it sound so kind of neat and like everything's kind of helping everything. There's no waste. In your project, you changed your service provider from factories to brands. Can you tell us a little bit more about what made you make that decision?
Yes, honestly, I experienced a lot of confusion at that stage because, as you know, I defined the off-season problem and connected it with the customer's needs. So I always think the service provider should be the factories. But during the process, I found this group, they face a lot of challenges. For example, most of them faced financial challenges and they lack of the promotion resources, etc. And so I did more research, and after I had a better understanding about this market, I found the brands will be ignored for a long time. They have the promotion resources the factories lack, like the offline store, online store, and the website and other social media to promote their products. And they also looking forward some new business models to provide better service to their customers so they can improve the market competitiveness. And that's the reason why I start to think what kind of role they can play in this service. So finally, I made that change. And I think the transformation of this stakeholder, the transfer of this the service provider doesn't affect the achievement of the project's original purpose, but it further achieves the benefits for different stakeholders at the same time. And because the brands, they own this kind of promotion resources, so the financial input for accessing the customers can be minimized. And that's also what I understand about the sustainability, uh, sustainable and maximize the use of the resources, especially for those existing resources. Yes. Thank you.
Your project definitely kind of pushes forward that sentiment of maximize the use of resources. And I thought what you said about being flexible, even in kind of who our stakeholders are and who the service providers are, is really interesting. And it's great to hear that it can actually lead to better outcomes, that kind of flexibility as a service designer. Xiaolin, your service, Farmally, engages young people to connect with the community to build a sustainable food system. What led you to the idea of encouraging the community to engage young people to make those kind of changes?
Well, thank you for giving me the mic, Laura. I want to answer these questions from two aspects. First of all, why young people? In my primary research, I remember when I have an interview with a farmer, he quoted, "We use pesticides because consumers like the products with flawless appearance, and he grow the food they eat separately from the food they sell." which is ironic because we complain about all kinds of issues like the food safety, all kinds of problems, but it is our choice determines how the food is produced and processed. And as young people, we are the main consumption force in the future. And definitely if we can change our attitudes and behaviors, the positive impact can be made on the food sustainability. And in my research, one insight is that the awareness of food sustainability of Chinese young people is deficient. So there is a large space and opportunity for me to explore. And secondly, why the community then? Initially, this idea of community engagement came up because of the pandemic. As we can see, the shortage of food, the stockpiling situation, these kinds of problems, they all show the vulnerability and imbalance of our current food system. But at the same time, we can see how powerful and instant the community actions in the lockdown, like the food distribution and the help between neighborhoods. So community intervention is a variable approach to our current challenge. And besides, in my field research, I also identify different types of people in the community, like the experienced buyers who know how to select food, and young mothers who need the support from the neighborhood, and like young professionals who are very busy but lack of food knowledge. So surprisingly, we found that they can help each other out. This when I decided to let my service to meet different people's needs and empower the transformation of behaviors, especially young people can benefit from it. I want to add one thing is that a community is not just identified by the locations. In the service I designed, people can explore the online community and even form the communities by themselves in the offline activities the service provided. And these are the reasons why I want to encourage community to engage young people to make changes.
That's amazing. Your project's so inspiring. I love the topic, any topic of food anyway. But it's especially kind of you making this really complicated system kind of seem simple, which is, yeah, really, really cool. You brought up the concept of circular food community in your project. Can you explain a little bit more about what that is?
Yeah, in terms of a circular food community, which I used to describe my service formally, it was inspired by the circular design for sure. I want to borrow the idea to create a food community that is sustainable in a circular way. In this community, people can subscribe and enjoy the local produce, learn about food sustainability from the good products we provide and from other people. And extra food can be donated to others in the community so that a positive circle can be formed. And it is a circle of eating, learning, and sharing from the production to where the food goes. And in this service, the consumers, local small farmers, the partner organizations, and the environment will be benefited. That's the concept of the circular food community in my project. Thank you.
Cool. Thank you, Xiaolin. Last but by no means least, Laura, your service, BioSherpa, engages entrepreneurs in a kind of circular economy and helps them find information about how to use wasted organic resources commercially. In your project, you explored how to identify and empower stakeholders that currently are feeling powerless to kind of make change within the climate crisis sphere. Why did that topic call your attention originally?
Thank you, Laura, for these questions. I feel like COVID opened this opportunity to rethink our world and what business as usual is. And I noticed on one hand, this build back better narrative, we need a change, please let's not return to pre-pandemic linear economy. And on the other hand, this frustration of people wanting to intervene and do more to address the climate crisis, but feeling absolutely powerless. So I asked myself, why do people feel they can't act? What is the change that everyone is waiting for or that we are looking to accomplish? And then who are the stakeholders that are going to activate that change? So I decided to use my major project to explore these questions and find ways to empower people with the right tools to take actions to address systemic issues like climate change. And to be honest, I didn't know how it would look like at the end, and I felt it was quite ambitious. So the first thing that I did was to put together a set of guiding principles to help me contain the project and narrow it down. So I knew I needed to find a new economic model. I read a lot about donors economics, distribution of knowledge, empowering of citizens, design activism. So I knew that I didn't want to design for the linear economy. And I also knew that I needed to think long-term. Like COVID has shown us that we need to think long-term and systemically. My goal was to find a small intervention, something that I personally call the minimum viable change that we could put out there to make people feel empowered. That was my main goal. And then finally, I knew that whatever I designed needed to reflect the world that I would like to live in: greener, distributed, inclusive, and diverse.
That's really great. I mean, you call it a small intervention, but I feel like your project is massive and covering such a huge area.
But it was very big at the beginning.
What systemic issues and key insights did you discover during this process?
So the process was super long. I spent like 9 months researching about this. And the first thing that I did was to map change as a concept from multiple perspectives. And this helped me actually to identify 4 key insights. So the first is the notion that change should be top-down, resulting in a concentration of programs and services supporting those stakeholders at the top. The second was that identifying that knowledge and data enables change, but is easily accessible by those stakeholders at the top, especially the knowledge that has the power to create wealth. That is the knowledge that should be distributed, right? The third one was noticing that there were 3 main or key players: designers, scientists, and entrepreneurs, who were big forces of change, but they felt powerless to activate change. And the fourth one was that economic model that I was reading about was the circular economy, because it's a new mindset, it's a new economic model. People just reduce the circular economy to let's recycle. So with all of this, I decided to explore the 3 stakeholders simultaneously, just to have in mind the dynamics that I could find while doing that. But I decided to focus at the end only on entrepreneurs. And while interviewing them, I found 3 things. First of all, the majority of them were working with waste, but specifically organic waste. The second thing was that their greatest challenge was to find the knowledge of what to do with the waste. That it was locked in scientific papers that were so difficult to navigate with scientific jargon, and some of the scientific papers were even not accessible by regular citizens. You have to pay a large amount of money to do that or to access. And finally, that these entrepreneurs had a characteristic that they all were surrounded by circular economic principles, sustainability. They research about it. So they were able to make critical decisions, but with that mindset. So with those insights, I developed BioSherpa at the end of all of this. That is a platform that allows entrepreneurs to find digestible and reliable information about the properties and commercial applications of wasted organic resources. Simple examples, so you can start now at home without no much technology, and tools. It is my entry point. Tools to help people, entrepreneurs, aspiring entrepreneurs, to acquire that circular mindset that we need to start developing. Thank you.
That's amazing. It sounds, I mean, it is a huge project, but you've made it sound really simple. And I love that it's kind of a way to kind of solve a problem that lots of people have.
Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you so much to all of the panelists, and thanks for all your questions that are coming through. I think if we start, there's a question for Daria from Mani. She says, or he says, most farmers in developing countries are small landowners, generally not owning more than an acre each. Are many of them based in places with poor infrastructure and rudimentary communication systems? And how would you organise and communicate kind of to all of these dispersed individual farmers to move as one kind of unit?
Thank you very much, Many, for the question, and Laura, to you for speaking it out. Basically, yes, one of the problems I found out that yes, the infrastructure in the places where the coffee beans are being grown is really poor and low, and sometimes there is no even access to the internet, or you should pay some money to get to on the internet, get online, and some farmers. Yeah, we'll start from here. There are several types of farmers. Some are more advanced and they know that there is internet. They always look up for new information. They always try to hire their skills in how to produce their beans in a better way, and that causes them to produce higher quality beans, which they can sell for a higher price, obviously. But then there are those farmers who are less progress in terms of usage of technology or access to the technology, and low access to the internet obviously leads you to low access to any up-to-date data. Same with farmers. And so there, I really found out that there are those two types of farmers, and I didn't really know how to deal with them. But then in the end, I understood that I need to bring them together. And I was talking about facilitation and saying that any farmer could progress not just as farmer in terms of how to produce your coffee beans, or update your knowledge about how to make better the soil for the coffee bean tree, whatever, but you can also grow as a facilitator or as a teacher, if simply talking. So that would allow basically more progress farmers. In my project, I call them specialty farmers because they grow specialty, which is a high grade coffee bean, which is sold for more money, and connect with this commercial farmer who just knows not that much as specialty, and so they could connect and discuss any issue regarding the coffee growing and the issues that the coffee industry faces. And within my community, I understood that it should be offline. So returning to the question, there is issue that the communications are really low, the roads might be not there. And I found it, even though I haven't been there, I found it through any other actors who are involved in value chain, with whom I spoke, with whom I did research and interviews. And I understood that my service should be offline. So I started looking for a touch point which is actually physical, and I found out that there is a place in every place of origin of coffee growing. There is this place called coffee cooperative, which is used by farmers to store their beans or help each other. It is created by farmers, so I understood that it's like a neutral ground where you can add the service on, and you don't need to create something new and something shocking for the farmers, because they might reject it automatically, because some of them are quite old school in how they produce their bean and how they access to the technologies, as we can see. So yeah, I guess that by creating an offline learning community, you can bring together two types of farmers and make a change in the whole system, because farmers is the one who stands in the beginning and does the most work from producing and coffee beans. You don't see it, but it is quite amazing. And again, you can find more about it in my what it is? Report. There you go. Sorry, I forgot the name. Yeah, I hope it answers the question.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. Thank you, Daria, and thanks for the question.
Yeah, thank you.
Richard had a question for Dorney. How did you find out that this was the best approach to take, and what research processes did you use?
Yeah. Actually, in my service, I try to have so many code discovery and co-design work with those stakeholders, from students to parents to the school managers and teachers. I find that although there are so many like natural experiments in science class, most students find it's a really pressure for them to do at home as a homework, because they have a load of homework of like math and English, such of this kind of homework. So when they try to do that at home, they find it's really boring, and when they have so many questions, they don't know whom to turn to help. So I try to do some like a card sorting with them to find their interest, what they want at the workshop. And like Daria says, those like agricultural things, service should be offline so that they could have more interactions with other kids and with other students. So I try to divide them into groups so that they learn how to cooperate with others from the very early stage. And I find that full cycle, it should be more things like game for them to find it's really interesting and funny so that they would get motivated from this and try to do that at home so that it's not like the parents would push them to the workshop. It's like they want to do that by themselves. So so the next question is that what kinds of tools? So you can find in my report, like the double diamond, I have so many research tools to use in my service, like user group sorting and interviews, like talk to them and co-work with them, and then in defining like making personas and user journey maps. Yeah, these are some service design tools I used. Yes, and like some cultural props, I asked them to me some like um, lunch meal at school so that I can find what they what their habits is. So I won't change a lot of their habits. Yeah, and so that's it. So I find I also did some prototype testing. So when you ask me that, why do you think this is the best way? So I don't know whether it's the best way, but I did several times of prototyping tests. So each time I find some more better insights and inspirations. So I changed a lot. And then I developed the prototype and final design into this way. So thanks for your question.
Thanks, Donnie. There's a question here from Sarah that I think is open to the group. I know that Chuan, your project kind of touched on this. I've heard a lot about peat bogs as well in the news recently, and how they're actually a much bigger carbon kind of storage system than forests and trees. So Sarah's question is, how do we move beyond this plant a tree concept to investing in the less sexy peat bog solution?
Yes, I definitely agree with that. I read a lot of reports on the peat bogs. Definitely, I even went to Scotland because Scotland is a really famous whiskey, and peat is part of why the Scottish whiskey has so much flavors in there. I totally agree with that. But I guess in terms of the peat bogs into my project, I have to really find ways to not deviate too far away from what people most appreciated at the moment. I guess plant a tree is just the rewarding part of the project. I agree, but you have to think about the cost of the peat bogs. If you want to do something for peat bogs, I guess the technology is not as well as developed there. The cost potentially be much higher than planting a tree. When I talk with a couple companies in terms of planting a tree, it can be as cheap as even $1. Some place, even some countries, even like 50 cents in their cost. So I guess they may be better fitting into the current rewarding system for my project. But I guess the next step is moving towards a better ways to capture the carbon. I guess the pit box, it will be a better place to really, but until we reach there, we have a lot of education to do to educate people. You see, plant a tree is not a solution yet, but we're gradually moving there. Once they think, okay, pit box is more important, they're more willing to accept it's a better ways to capture the carbon. So I think until we have the education be firmly embedded into people's mind, then in that case, we could switch the rewarding system to be a pit box to, I don't know how to either plant a pit box or plant more, but I guess it's very interesting. I totally agree. It's a better ways to capture carbon, but I guess consider the cost and the other factors. I guess currently plant a tree is appealing to more people. It's based on my understanding. Yeah.
Cool, thanks, Chuan. Kind of related to your answer there, lots of people have been asking questions about, obviously there was a theme across a lot of your projects about addressing this kind of culture change towards a certain topic, or trying to kind of influence a change in people's actions. I'm just trying to think of the best way to summarize lots of these questions. But I like what Richard said here, the kind of what aspects of service design do you think can help make this long-term change? So kind of this change and closing gaps between people's actions and what they kind of want to be able to do. And that's opened up to everyone, because I think loads of your projects were kind of touching on that subject.
I would like to answer that question. Just a quick comment so others can speak as well. So I feel that, or what I found in my project is that we don't think circular. We think linear. So despite the fact that we have this amazing approach that is service design, let's think on the users and all of that, we design things for the linear economy at the end. And that needs to change. We need to start thinking circular and incorporate it in all the double diamond process that we are all using, the circular economy and the circular mindset, so we can actually help people to start thinking that way. But that's something that for me needs to go back as well to students that are looking to develop businesses, for example, or are studying entrepreneurship or innovation, how circular mindset can be embedded there in those early stages when they are not even thinking to become an entrepreneur, but they can be an entrepreneur. And we start activating the change there. And the second thing is thinking systemically, like seeing the ecosystem and going beyond the user needs. And understanding how your service impacts society, how your service or your product or the business that you are about to start, it's going to impact not only the planet, but like non-living actors, for example, policies, how your service is going to affect your community, the traffic, the air. You know, we need to start thinking in that way. And that's why I developed the Impact Business Model Canvas. That is just a quick tool that everyone knows. But if everyone is using that, what if we include the long-term impacts there so people can start thinking about that? So yeah, I think that's the key.
That's great. Chuan, did you want to add anything to that?
Yes, I love Laura's answer, because it's very interesting and from the corporate side of a view. And also one thing I would like to add from the individual point of view, I think a lot of people, even now, again, this valuation gap, people aware of that. They're afraid something is too small to do or something is too big to achieve. I guess the most easiest ways to achieve, to make people be more sustainable actually is help them to facilitate the first step. And I do find once people form that certain sustainable habit, they just roll themselves. They don't really need extra push to make them even more sustainable. Their eyes become more open. This can find the ways to say, okay, I have been bring my own cups to the coffee shop. Oh, I can bring my bags to the Tesco. So sometimes you feel as long as they make the first step, it's much easier to form a better or be more sustainable in the future. I guess that's the reason I'm interested to facilitate the first step. And also another aspect, in my research, I did ask people's question, who should be more responsible for our current sustainable issues? Then I have three options for them. One is government, individual, and companies. Interestingly, the highest vote actually is for the government. So most of people actually think it's government's issue. To somehow, I also think government should do more. And of course, our service design try our best to encourage individual behavior change, encouraging more company to be more sustainable. But I guess we need a lot of extra support from the government. I know they issue some white papers or blue papers, whatever, but sometimes it's powerless to really punish those companies and not doing the right thing, or encourage the company to do the right thing. So I guess but we know a lot of service designer maybe not directly work on a sustainable topic, but they work for the government. I guess would be an interesting aspect. Think about whole system. It's individual company, government, encourage all the people working in different area to embed those circular economy ideas, to forget about the linear economy in the future. And I guess sustainable is, again, we hear, I guess everyone agree with me, sustainability is an issue of the whole system. We cannot change from one thing for all. We have to work together from all aspects, government, individual, and companies. I guess that's my answer. So we all work for some bits in our own field, but we should think about those bigger goals. We cannot do by ourselves. You have to work with other people. Yeah.
That's great. Thanks, Chuan.
So,
sorry, did you want to?
I have one more to add from Sean's questions, because my project was for things about the an interaction from the audiences since the first beginning of the process. So I decided to give them like the education first, to educate them how the impact if they don't do like more sustainable in their life. So the people who lack of sustainability in their daily life, they don't know what to do and they don't understand what their sustainability is. So at first, I think everyone would like to encourage each others and like to give each others about their education about the sustainability.
That's great, thank you. I'm not sure how many more questions we've got time for, but there's quite a big one that's come up. Both Sarah and Ness have kind of mentioned this. This is a question to everyone. What do you think the service designer's role should be in this kind of system of change in the future? And what skills can we bring as service designers to that?
Okay, I can take it. I was waiting for someone else to try to allow people to speak, but I can take it. So very short, like I think as designers, we need to bring the future in, and we can use speculative design and ways to show people the future, to see the long-term aspects of their business. That's very important. And then bring circularity principles to our design. Sometimes and something that I found during the research process is that I started with this climate crisis, and that's why quite overwhelming. That's why people cannot act, because climate crisis, what it is, how do we solve it? You know, like it's so big, so it's overwhelming for everyone. But once you narrow it down to the circular economy, that is that new economic model that proposes a new mindset. It's not about recycling. It's a new mindset, a new way of thinking, a new way of the economy operating. That's when you understand, okay, what are the principles in the circular economy? How can I design services in a circular way? How do I need to think in order to design circularly? So I feel that that's the first step, to make sure that we are bringing to our design process the systemic approach, long-term thinking, and circular principles.
I think I can add on that. Yeah, Laura, seriously, I think all the aspects you've covered are quite valuable, and I'm sure we need to bring in the future thinking and show the impact that we're gonna make the impact on tomorrow, or 15 years, 50 years, I don't know, 200 years. What's gonna be then? And but another thing I was just thinking, you know, I was asking myself a lot of questions, and I think this is the job that we have as a designer. We ask questions constantly. We ask how it's gonna progress tomorrow, how we gonna see it today, what it's gonna be in few years, how the person will interact with my service, what will they think. And I think that truly asking questions as simple as that, beautiful questions which we structure to gain the answers, to gain the insights, to understand what people think and how they will interact, test by asking questions with our audience. And I think it will partially
open a curtain on tomorrow as well, because tomorrow the people will be born again and they will interact with our service, obviously in a different way. Psychology will be different. We can already see how 10 years changed us all. What am I today is not what is my sister, you know, and we have 6 years difference. That's it. But already mindset is changing quite dramatically. And I think that, yes, bringing mindset is very important as well, you know, showing that, you know, guys, it is not that question. Ask questions yourself, and then you'll get the answers because they are there. So yeah, I think my insight in here is to ask questions and bring the mindset and change the mindset and show how it can be done really in a simple way, such as services which interact with people every day. So yeah, I think that's it for me.
Okay, I've got another question here from Richard, specifically to Ting. He wanted to know, how do you overcome the conflict of repairing existing clothing, and how does that impact the sales of new items?
Thank you, Laura, and thank you, Richard, for asking the question. I think it's really gave me an opportunity to clarify my service clear. And firstly, I would like to say we are talking about the sustainable ecosystem, but not fast fashion. And I also would like to say my project, this ecosystem is not about repair their old clothes, but it's more about transfer the old clothes to other products, like a hat, a scarf, or some artworks like a painting made by the old clothes and with some meaningful special meanings. And that's the ecosystem. And I also have an example from my test activities. One mother find me after the test, and she said she would like to provide me some old clothes, and she also sent some her son's picture, and she said she want to me help her transfer the old clothes into some artwork which related to her son, because this old clothes was weared by her son, but because the the child grows very quickly, so she thinks she can use these old clothes, and so that's the ecosystem, the sustainable ecosystem for this project. And I also would like to clarify, it's not a separate service, but it's connected with the brand's after-sales service. So we all know a lot of brands have a membership system. Like when the customer buys some new clothes from the brands, they will give you some points at your personal account. And next time when you buy the clothes from these brands, you can get a discount by these points. And so in this ecosystem, you can also use the points to enjoy the transformed service, to try to find some old clothing you don't want to wear anymore and transfer them into other meaningful things, no matter some practical product or some works of art for of some special meanings for the customers. So I think my answer answered the question.
That's great, thanks, Ting. We're going to have to end it there because it's 11, but there are so many other great questions in the chat. I don't know if the easiest way is question askers. I think everyone's email address or a form of contact is all on our portfolios and the links that have been shared in the chat. If you wanted to get in touch directly with people to ask your questions, that would be great. And we'll save the chat as well so that we can kind of go back and have a look at those questions. But I just wanted to say thanks so much everyone for being here with us today, to all of the panelists for answering so many questions, and all of the attendees for asking so many great questions. This event was part of the London College of Communication Postgraduate Showcase. There are many more events coming over the weekend in the next few days. So please feel free to have a look on the website and to browse through the student work after this event by visiting graduateshowcase.arts.ac.uk. Thanks again, everyone. You're free to leave the session.